All right, all right. Welcome everybody to another episode of Hot Seat Automotive Podcast. Your buddy CJ here, and we're talking about all things automotive industry. We're talking about car guy stuff, cars, and all the things that automotive enthusiasts are interested in. This is the place for real gearhead talk. Real gearhead talk. That's what we're all about here on the podcast. And guys, I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you so much to my subscribers. Guys, if you're not a subscriber, please give me a like and a subscribe. If you're into cars, if you're a car guy or a car girl, if you're an automotive enthusiast and you enjoy talking about cars, old cars, classic cars, muscle cars, modern cars, supercars, sports cars, the automotive industry, motorsports, then you have arrived at the right place because that's what we do. That's what we do here. And guys, leave me comments. I'll respond to all the comments I can. We're going to keep going. It's been a little over a month we've been doing the podcast. We have just some fantastic engagement, some wonderful, wonderful subscribers and folks participating, incredible interaction, so much respectful discourse. I'm loving it. And we just getting started. We are just getting started on Hot Seat Automotive Podcast. And I'm so excited to have you guys here. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Can you feel the energy? I hope you can. And guys, let's get right into this. So tonight, we have a special episode where we are going to talk about a motorsports topic. Let's talk about NASCAR. What is wrong with NASCAR in 2024? You know, first things first, full transparency. I don't position myself nor claim to be Mr. NASCAR motorsports expert. I've been a casual fan of NASCAR since I was a kid. You know, I've been a lifelong passionate car guy. I'm a car guy first. Motorsports are kind of second for me. That's just who I am. Leave me comments. Tell me if you're different or where you stand on all this. You know, I love hearing from you guys. You know, on Hot Seat Automotive Podcast, we love talking to each other. But guys, NASCAR, what's wrong with NASCAR? I want to talk about it tonight, you know, and maybe talk about the path forward. Like, I think first things first, NASCAR has what I would categorize as a generational brand connectivity problem. What do I mean by that? When you look at the boomers to Gen Xers, you know, in my view, that was really the peak of NASCAR. When you look at the heritage of how NASCAR came up, there was so much connected tissue, particularly for the boomer generation, between the brands, the Fords, the Chevy, the Dodges, okay? Stock cars, stock car racing. There was a time when NASCAR was really stock car racing. It's not anymore. And that's a big issue for this sport. Okay. And maybe evolution and innovation is what it is, you know, and they had to get away from this brand identity. But, you know, starting out, you know, with the car of tomorrow, those of you know, when they moved towards sort of this standard platform and up to the next gen, the current generation came out in 2022, where everybody kind of has the same car. It's just got kind of a different shell around it with different stickers, literally. You know, you got away from that connected tissue, that hardcore, it's a Ford, it's similar to my Ford sitting out there at the curb, right? I can watch the race on the weekend and I have a connection to the race. It's not just a sticker on the car. And I think that something was lost in the translation. I don't think it was well managed and implemented. I think knowing that there needed to be innovations, of course, and better safety and all these things with the car of tomorrow, with the next gen, with these new, you know, moving away from a true stock car model, maybe that just wasn't practical, safe, and reasonable in the modern era over the past 25 years. I get it. I understand it. But I think in implementation, NASCAR had a miss. They had a bunch of misses. Let's be blunt. Real talk. How about some real talk tonight? NASCAR made a series of decisions in the early 2000s, in my view, that really shot themselves in the foot and hurt the sport and probably did some irreparable damage. because while NASCAR had a huge following in the boomer generation and even to some extent in Generation X, your buddy CJ's a Generation Xer. I'm a Gen Xer, okay? And a lot of guys my age are still into NASCAR, but I think they lost something in the 2000s. And I think a part of it was the brand identity. Something else that NASCAR kind of got wrong. Let's keep going. And I want to share a different view because that's one of the things that we enjoy doing on this channel is looking at things together. So guys, let's take another look. You know, here's a shot. I believe this was from the LA Coliseum race, if I'm not mistaken, which I did watch. I thought it was kind of a cool, interesting idea. They tried to do some things to maybe turn on some millennials and get maybe even some Gen Z people into the sport. I don't know if it was a total success. I watched the broadcast, the first one. I didn't watch this. I think there was a second one at LA Coliseum. Leave me comments what you guys think about sort of some of these newer races they've implemented. But guys, I do think that venues are important. You know, venues in history have always been a big part of NASCAR and its appeal. And in the southeastern United States in particular, this was NASCAR country. Your buddy CJ lives in the South, okay, in the southeastern United States. And this was NASCAR country, right? So some of the historic tracks, like you think of Daytona, Darlington, Bristol, okay, you think of even Atlanta Motor Speedway. Well, let's talk about Darlington. You know, they moved certain races for a while away from Darlington. That was kind of a kick in the face to NASCAR diehards, right? North Wilkesboro, Rockingham. Moving races away from these old classic historical tracks, while from a marketing standpoint may have made sense with some strategy to go bigger, new venues, more capacity, modern venues, bigger markets, Dallas, Los Angeles, California, you name it. Something was lost. I talked about that connected tissue, that history in the southeastern United States in particular and other regions. That meant a lot to the boomer generation and even the Gen Xers. Being really blunt, I think you miffed a lot of fans. You turned off a lot of fans, NASCAR, when you did some of those things. And I claim some of that damage is irreparable, and I'll tell you why in a moment. I will say I think NASCAR has walked some of these things back, and you've seen some stabilization perhaps in some of the ratings in recent years. I don't think it's coming blazing back, and I think it's going to continue to deteriorate. More on that in a couple of minutes. But some of that damage you just can't fix. Okay? Let's continue to switch it up here, guys, because you know we love looking at things together, don't we? Let me put up something else here for us to look at. All right, a couple of those modern next-gen cars. Look at that. We got a Mustang versus a Camaro. Mustang versus Camaro on a NASCAR track. How cool is that? Is it enough to bring NASCAR all the way back, though? Is it too little too late? I think it is. You know, in the era of media saturation and everything on all the time, Instagram, social media, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, streaming services. There's so many streaming services. There's so many different, access to different sports, F1, Grand Prix, Le Mans, all these things. The proliferation of access to 24/7 content, including sports, including global media and entertainment, that's taken a chunk out of NASCAR. There was a time, particularly for boomers and early on for Gen Xers, if it wasn't on TV, we couldn't see it. We had newspapers, we had magazines, we had television. And you waited for weekend for the live broadcast, regular television, broadcast TV, and then into even cable television. Everybody, there was this big energetic buildup to the big NASCAR event. Well, that's been completely saturated. Yes, there are still live events. We got Daytona coming up soon. Okay, I'm excited. I'm going to an event. I'm going to a screening for the Daytona 500. I'm looking forward to it. But it almost gets lost in the noise for so many, forget about Gen X and the boomers for a minute, but I think for the millennials, the Gen Zs, do they really care? They have so much going on. It's almost like a squirrel looking at all these shiny, exciting, cool nuts that they could grab. What's going to attract them to NASCAR? I think something else that we need to talk about is the general decline, in my perception, in the automotive enthusiast hobby. How much connectivity is there between these younger generations, millennials, Gen Zs, and their cars? It's just not what it was with the boomers and the Gen Xs. So I claim less interest in those core brands, the Ford, the Chevy, even, listen, Toyota and Dodge no longer participating. Hopefully they come back someday. But you don't have as much, commitment to a single brand, if you will, and commitment to the automotive enthusiast hobby in general. I claim that has a reflection on motorsports and a painful reflection on NASCAR, because so much of the history was built on that. I will never forget your buddy CJ. I'm going to tell a story on myself. Listen to this. There was a time when your buddy CJ was an aircraft mechanic. Okay, that's probably a subject for a whole other episode. Let me know if you want to hear about that story. Part of my history, right? And I was going to aviation school, and I had a hydraulics instructor. We're studying all things related to aircraft hydraulic systems. And this fantastic, amazing, really cool instructor that I had at the time, he was a Ford guy, and he was a hardcore NASCAR fan. It was a school in Florida, and this guy drove his F-150 to work every day. It was blue and white, two-tone. I can still picture it in my mind vividly. And on a Monday morning, when we would start class for aircraft hydraulics, he would say to us quite often, "Guys, the Fords won, and that's a good thing." Or if the Fords didn't win, he'd say, "Well, the Fords did not win, and that's unfortunate." Literally, this guy would start hydraulics class in my aviation school back in the day. We're talking early 90s. And this guy was hardcore passionate. Now, he was, my father's generation. He was a boomer, right? And this guy was hardcore Ford, hardcore old school NASCAR fan. Fast forward to today. When's the last time, be honest, leave me comments. When's the last time you came across a conversation about NASCAR? I don't hear it. Now, I don't run in the same circles as you probably. So leave me comments, but I got to be honest with you. Everybody's fired up for Super Bowl. I hear talk about, college basketball, college football. I hear nothing in social circles about NASCAR. It's not what it used to be. And I claim a function of that is a lack of connectivity and some terrible decisions. In hindsight, terrible decisions by NASCAR associated with its marketing and its strategy. Okay? Guys, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Who's having more fun than us? Nobody. Nobody has more fun. Guys, give me a like and subscribe. Hot Seat Automotive Podcast. We gonna keep going. We're having so much fun. Send me your suggestions for episodes, and we'll get them knocked out. We'll do them together. How do you like that? We'll do them together. Okay, guys. A couple other things. The implementation of rules around the playoffs and the chase, I think, I'm not going to get into the technicalities of it. It's beyond the scope of tonight's podcast. But generally speaking, I will say, particularly in the early 2000s, I think somewhere in the order of 2004-ish, NASCAR started implementing these rules, new rules around a playoff chase and like sort of resetting the top 10. And what did it do? It added drama and competition. I think with NASCAR's hope was that this drama and competition would increase viewership, but actually had the adverse effect of turning off its fan base. So there's that. The fans didn't want this change. The fans hated it. And again, it's just a way of NASCAR thinking, they were too smart for their own good, perhaps, and ended up alienating and hurting their core, which does have a generational ripple. Hey, my grandfather's into that. My father's into that. We watch the races together. Well, if grandpa and dad are turned off and are disgusted in it, that's going to have a ripple effect on the next generation and the generation after that. So I do think there is some connectivity here that we need to talk about. How can NASCAR fix some of these things? Can they? What do I think? What does your buddy CJ think? No. I think there is irreparable damage. And I think in the modern era, they are going to continue to have to try to do more with less. Try to remain relevant, try to remain profitable, try to have some revenue growth with less and less fan base. And I'm not sure how you do that. I think it's a fascinating and important moment for NASCAR. Please leave me comments. Some of you may feel differently. I just, the continued rise of F1. F1 just had a big race in Las Vegas. That's a whole other topic. It's very polarizing what happened with F1 this year in Vegas. I'm a Vegas guy, I'm a car guy, and I'm a motorsports guy. So I got my own opinions about that. Trust me. I didn't go. I almost went. Who went? Leave me comments. Motorsports guys, did you go to F1 in Vegas? I want to hear about it. Have you been to a NASCAR race lately? Leave me comments. I want to hear about it. Let's talk about it. How are you going to get the millennials and the Gen Zs into this? There was a natural dynamic to the boomer generation, just really catching fire, if you will, as NASCAR fans, particularly in the southeastern United States. It was the right sport at the right time, the right brand identity, the rise of the automotive muscle car culture, classic car culture, the stock cars. Oh my gosh, the importance of the stock cars as a part of NASCAR and how you related to it. That's gone. Them days are gone. That ship has sailed. How is NASCAR going to recover from that? What are you going to introduce Tesla? A lot of people who drive Teslas are not car guys. EV people are generally not car people. I said it. I don't care if it's unpopular. People who are early adopters of EVs and some of these innovations around hybrids, they don't give a damn about motorsports. They don't care. There's a whole generation of people who would rather take a Lyft or an Uber than drive a car. Can we be honest tonight? Your buddy CJ's got real talk for you tonight. There is a whole generation of millennials and Gen Z people, particularly the Gen Zs, who would rather ride in an Uber or a Lyft than drive a car. They don't care about cars. They didn't grow up like Gen Xers. Yeah, maybe not all millennials are like this, but they certainly didn't grow up like Gen Xers and boomers who grew up with, if you were a car guy coming up in that generation, your car was part of your identity. Your identity as a motorsports fan was tied to a brand, was tied to your car. It was all interconnected. Fast forward to particularly Gen Z, the future. Forget about you and I, millennials and boomers. Who cares? Gen Xers, I should say. Who cares about the Gen Xers? No, but in all seriousness, NASCAR, the future is millennials and Gen Zs. Okay? What you gonna do about these people who don't care about cars? What you gonna do about these people who, if they're gonna do motorsports, they're gonna be more interested in F1 because it's arguably more exciting, more engaging. It's got more mass appeal. It's a global thing. Y'all, NASCAR product is aging and it's not aging well. Of course the cars have evolved. Of course their technology marvels and all these things. I know. But you've also done some things to alienate that legacy fan base. There's also been this media saturation. There's a problem with brand identity. You've gotten away from certain venues. People have eviscerated the broadcasts. I don't know a lot of fans of the broadcasts, okay, of NASCAR events anymore. Okay, I haven't heard good things about it. So what you going to do, NASCAR? I don't know what the answer is. I do think it's going to continue to decline. What do you guys think? Leave me comments. I think it is a sport in decline. I think they're going to struggle. I don't think they've done enough to course correct. And in fact, it's not about course correcting for past mistakes. They need to get over it. They need to innovate in a thoughtful way that's going to connect the sport somehow, not only with, the boomers. Listen, it's kind of done. Like, they're either fans or they're not. Move on. Gen X, okay, those that are 45 and older right now, I do think you could potentially get some more interest and loyalty out of that generation, but really where they want to focus for longevity and growth, you got to tap into millennials and Gen Zs. And I don't know how you do that for all the reasons I just mentioned. It's a fascinating business problem. It is not a sports problem. Yes, there are things they can do to make the sport better, but it is a brand, marketing, and business problem that NASCAR has. Your buddy CJ said it. It's a brand, marketing, and business problem that NASCAR has right now. What you gonna do, NASCAR? I don't know. Guys, leave me comments if you have ideas. I think it's a sport with a questionable future, even though they've still got, they're still running. And I'll be, listen, your buddy CJ, I'm no hypocrite. Let me tell you, I will be watching the Daytona 500 with some friends. Will you? Tell me about it. Let me know what you think. But guys, those are just some of my thoughts about what's wrong with NASCAR. And, maybe difficult to formulate answers on a 15-minute podcast, but let's talk about it. What do you guys think? Leave me some comments. I'd love to hear from you. Guys, I just love you, each and every one of you, so much. I'm so grateful for everybody who's a part of the podcast. Let's keep going. Please give me a like and subscribe. Having so much fun. And guys, I'm really looking forward to talking to you on the next one. Be good. Peace.